In keeping with the one of the objectives, purposes of this gathering to be like a conference type. So one of the topics that came to mind was an open discussion on AI. In the same way that the internet changed everyone's lives in the 1990s, AI today is gonna change everyone's lives. More importantly, it's gonna impact the workplace. Now, what we want to do now is have an open discussion. Mostly, we'd like to invite a lot of you to share your experience with AI as it relates to how you do your work today. Because we want you to get ahead of the competition in the work that you do currently. Otherwise, if you're not paying attention, you might get left behind. We've all been hearing and listening to what experts are already forecasting of how AI is going to impact our lives. I will start the discussion with a personal experience before I retired at work. So my work at NIH is software engineering. One of my tasks was it was a document library, it's SharePoint, and it was a hierarchy of documents. And it goes as deep down as like 20 levels. And then my work was to traverse all of those levels and go to each one of those documents and convert the permission from read only to from read and write to read only. That was the task that I was given. As a software engineer, it would take me, without AI, about 3 days to write the code to achieve that outcome. So my boss told me, go to Google Gemini AI and give it the prompt to tell you how to do what you need to do, which is traverse all of those and then convert the permissions from read and write to read only. So I did that. I went to Google Gemini, put in the prompt, and like 5-10 minutes later, it came back. Google Gemini came back, listed all of the code, about 40 lines of code. And this is what you need to do to achieve your task, to convert that from read and write to read only. And it even tells me how to do it. You copy and paste all of that code, install it in a file, and then you deploy that file to your server. So 3 days became like 10 minutes.
Wow.
It's amazing, scary of what AI can do today. And now I invite any one of you to volunteer how you've been using AI to enhance the work that you do so that you can get ahead and not get left behind in your career. Any volunteers?
I think Chris has been using AI. Chris?
Chris?
So recently, I produced this song with some friends, and we recorded with friends using AI.
Chris? Chris, can you just move forward close to your laptop so you don't...
It also helps if we...
Okay.
Okay.
There you go, Chris.
And
Okay,
steady,
is
just
this
steady.
better?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so an instance where AI helped me in my career is recently, like I mentioned, I'm trying to make music for bigger pop groups, and I produced a song with one of our friends who is a male vocalist, and that song was chosen by a large Korean record label, and they really liked the song. The only issue was they wanted it for one of their girl groups. So they asked us to go into the vocal and use AI to change it into a girl singing so that they can envision it for the girl group that they had in mind. And we used AI and they loved it, and we're hoping that eventually the song will come out, but that's just one simple way that AI is helping me in the music industry.
All right.
Yep.
I'll kind of add to that in the sense that basically a part of like my company, our parent company is one of the largest real estate data companies in the US. And so a lot of times in our like pitches that we do to potential clients, we'll incorporate AI to help scrub the database that we have to pull the most relevant data in order to present the best pitch. That would take me hours to figure out that data that would be most meaningful to those clients. And in that sense, it's wonderful. I will go ahead and do the devil's advocate side of it and say that there are certain aspects of AI that do over-infringe on a lot of things, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like a double-sided sword where you can use it for good or for cutting corners in another way. So that's my thought from it.
As a nurse, AI can maybe assist with researching different articles of what could be better protocols for doing certain procedures, doing research. But as someone who provides direct patient care, you can't substitute empathy for some kind of artificial intelligence. That's just different. That's a human experience. I don't think that is sustainable in my field of healthcare in order to provide this kind of care for different patients. It's different, and sometimes I think AI at the same time, yes, you can shorten processes, you can create guidelines, you can create policies, you can pull data. That's something AI is really good at, is pulling data and summarizing it in a way that you can figure something out in such a short amount of time. Yes, absolutely, but you can't ever replace that human experience. And I think it's different with what kind of field that you're in, because as someone who provides human care and patient to patient, person to person, you can't ever replace me with AI, I think.
Period.
Go Catters! So.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think to build off what Kathy said, for ultrasound, we do use AI too, but it's one of those imaging modalities that really relies on the tech. So the way that we use AI, let's say I'm live scanning and you see I'm moving the probe and then I see the femur, the thigh bone, and I need to measure it. I hit freeze, AI will auto place the calipers on what it thinks is the thigh bone. And so a lot of times great, I can just save that measurement. I didn't have to manually place the calipers because AI knew what the bone was in the image. So it saves time. I mean, time as in seconds, but it does a little bit of the work for me. If I'm measuring the head, it'll auto place the calipers and it'll measure the head for me. That's the extent that we use AI. It just kind of auto places calipers on what it thinks is what I'm trying to measure. But similar to what Kat said, I think in ultrasound specifically, and especially for pregnant women, they really rely on the conversation and the back and forth and you explaining what you're doing. If we ever get a bad review, it's because the tech wasn't explaining what they were doing, what they were looking at. So I think for ultrasound, it's one of the imaging modalities that you cannot replace. I think, you know, like when you think about X-ray, MRI, you kind of send the patient on their own. You take a bunch of pictures and AI is really helpful for those. But for ultrasound, you really need the person to explain what you're looking at. I don't know about the other modalities, but I know for pregnant women, they really appreciate the empathy in the room and the, like Kat said, the human interaction, because it is such a sensitive field, and being in high risk, it can be, you know, very sad. Patients are crying, and so having a physical person there to receive, you know, that reaction and feedback, and just the comfort, you can't get that from AI. Like, I think the AI measuring the things that we need to measure is super helpful, but also we can do that ourselves. We don't need the AI.
I'll just jump in because I talk to a lot of parents that are working with high school seniors, and so for college admissions essays or just creative writing, this is something that is a conversation. Is AI impacting creativity of youth? And so for people who are planning to have children or are parents, it's something that it seems like a very concerning topic, because it's going to like change our lives in a very different way. But again, like similar, it's like a learning tool is how I like to say it, compared to like the internet as well. And it can't replace a lot of things, especially for college essays, because like it can create an essay that's more technically sound, but it can't create like your identity and your own individual story. So I think it's really interesting that, you know, kids will grow up with a tool that will help them be able to access things that even I didn't have growing up, like Filipino American history or all of these things. And so I think that's something that I really try to approach it with, is that it's something that we can use to help kids get smarter in ways that we haven't been able to touch before, but it's really equipping them and really teaching them how to use it responsibly and how to do it in a way that would really make them not reliant on it, but rather enhanced by it.
I think it's like an interesting battle between, is it more convenient versus is it not teaching the creative or analytical skills of people? So like one thing that I see as like a hobbyist DJ in Richmond is some people would typically like hire local graphic designers to like build out flyers and like do these things that like help them start to build their portfolio. Whereas other crews start to utilize AI to build out those things and start cutting out the people who are learning and developing their skills. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. I think the balance is, are we utilizing it to enhance efficiency, or are we utilizing it to cut out costs that associate with people coming from the ground up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I can quickly speak to two things that I think you both spoke to. One in particular that I think is always been important, and even more important now with AI and people using it as a search engine. Media literacy is a skill that's hard to come by, and what's more it's adjacent, but it's more foundational, I think, to be media literate and understand how to double check the facts, double check what you're reading. what source is telling you X, Y, Z? Who are you parroting it to? Because I'm guilty of this. I'll read an article and I'll say, oh, I read this, and then it just kind of ripple effects. But we'll find out that study is a flawed study. It was, I don't know, like paid for by Monsanto. Anyway, so media literacy is very, very important. I'm advocating for that, especially when you're using AI. Secondly speaking is speaking to cost. So yes, it can make things more easier and more efficient and save time and money. That is I think that view is not to say not to pass judgment on it, but it's relatively myopic, because what are the ethical implications of utilizing AI, and how does it affect not only your job, but high school students that are using it, teenagers that are going into it for therapy.
Sure.
There's stories of people that have unfortunately committed suicide because AI has told them to do so, and that's the only way out. But zooming out again on that picture is the infrastructure it takes for this AI to function. Where is this infrastructure currently being built? It's not in Washington, D.C. It's not in Northern Virginia. It's out in rural communities that are signing deals with these AI companies, where AI is driving, these data centers are driving the price of
Electricity.
electricity.
in Northern Virginia.
Oh, it is in Northern Virginia.
All
There's
over.
I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
Stand corrected. It's everywhere. Okay, so sorry. I stand corrected. It's everywhere. And it's negatively impacting these communities. The jobs that they are promising are not long-term jobs. It doesn't take that many people as they're saying it is to run a data center. And I know that's one side, but I think it's important to talk about not only the technology itself, but the surrounding implications of how it comes to be, the people that it affects, and also the possible negative outcomes of utilizing it.
I agree.
I want to jump in from the creative standpoint. Thank you for bringing that up, because for anybody who's a creative, your intellectual output is your pride and it's your creation. So what happens when, instead of coming up with original ideas, all the ideas are already accounted for? All the ideas are already accounted for in the MML system, or LLM system, large language model, right? Then all of the outcomes are reduced to historical data.
Right.
There will be no new data produced by AI.
Right.
What does that mean for human ingenuity? Our cognitive evolution, we've reached this point where reason and rationalism has become a regular part of society, right? But now logic is overtaking creativity and human values. Because then we're allowing a machine to make every decision for us. So what happens when that crashes? What happens when the power cuts out? We know what happens. Last week, for Amazon Web Service, it's a data center in Loudoun County. It threw everything off. Flight cancellations. None of us could work. Nobody could work because all of our data was sucked into Jeff Bezos's machine, and he only controls it. So that's my piece.
No, I 100% agree. I think that's like the thing that I struggle with as like balancing the creative and business analytical side is you want to use it, but also there's a lot of problems.
Can I just add something to
Yeah.
that? But before that, you can very well get some food, but we'll continue to talk. I work in the healthcare field. I'm a physical therapist, and they just recently put in AI to do complete history of the patient taken from the hospital, put in our data that will then upload to the chart, and it will write on all the history and everything of the patient without us having to interview the patient. came directly from the hospital to our chart where we document. We usually spend 2.5 hours to do this evaluation. It's called the start of care. It's reduced to now maybe 15 minutes because of that. Now, what does it does to me and what does it does to you as patients or my future patients? First, the critical thinking is gone. They picked it up, lifted it up from the hospital, put in your chart, and all I have to do is test you and say, okay, well, you don't have enough strength, you can't walk 10 feet, and I'm done. What did I do to you? I did not look at your chart, evaluate deeply what was wrong with you, what caused you to be like this, how did you get to this point? Did you have diabetes when you were a childhood? I didn't interview you.
Or the data that they didn't collect.
And the data didn't collect. I didn't interview you. It was pulled from the hospital straight down to your chart, and here I am just asking you questions. So there is no more critical thinking, there's no more assessment happening, and right now it's being trialed by my company and being asked by therapists who are, I think, lazy and not dedicated therapists to do that. That will replace me as an old therapist that is coming from writing notes, pulling a big chunk of notes from the hospital, reviewing page by page. That's how it was before, to now having that AI. I don't like it. It only helps because now, if they can pull it, now talk about first, talk about ease or comfort. If they pull it, but then I review everything, pull out the things that I don't like, but still ask you what I need to know about you, then that helped me. But the problem is with therapists, all of therapists do that. They may not, because I can see that they're not. So that's the danger in the healthcare field that you would see seeing, and that the future is coming to us in the home health setting.
And speaking, if I can jump in,
Yeah.
speaking to that.
But please feel free to ask.
Yeah, everybody go eat. But speaking to that on the government side, we're always asked to make decisions with our discretion to the preponderance of evidence. Whenever we make a decision to issue a passport, it's a legal decision, and it can have a profound effect on a lot of people's lives, especially people who immigrate here, and sometimes their passport is actually, with some laws, it's their first evidence of citizenship after they immigrate. So we're asked to put all this evidence together, and like you were saying, AI is great. It can do the research for you and pull things out. But in the end, in the government, there's still, the buck still has to stop somewhere, and somebody has to be held accountable. And that comes to the ethics of everything. And they always told us, would you be able to defend your decision in a court of law if somebody challenged you? And can an AI do that? No, because it can be used for certain things like research. It can be used for communication. But in the end, the government still has to be held accountable for what it does, and people still have to be held accountable for what it do. That's just part of democracy.
And the good thing about what you said is you're making decisions, but if you make a mistake, you're now having a person enter the country that is a danger to...
Right. Or vice versa, denying somebody their right to be able to...
Right, both ways.
What they're entitled to.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Day one, I forgot to mention this, my company wants most, if not all, of the news to be completely written by AI.
Oh.
And so right now, what I'm trying to do is reposition my role as a feature writer. So I'm writing those longer interviews and pieces, which that's like, could be a benefit. It frees up my time to do more of the in-depth writing that I want to do, rather than the stuff that's just reading off a press release that was already written and giving the same exact details.
In your creativity and interest also dampens because now you can tell yourself that, you know, I don't have to do this, I don't have to work that hard. They can
Yeah,
just do it.
and I read that it actually, people who use it, it decreases your problem-solving capabilities. Your brain is actually like degenerating.
Yeah.
That's not even like an exaggeration. And I don't want my brain, which is my literal instrument of my work, to be smooth and